Welcome to another episode of Moments with Nyengeterai. I'm so excited. Thank you everyone for subscribing, for sharing, for the comments, for everything. I'm really, really excited. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Please continue to share and continue to subscribe. So today I have a very exciting guest. I know some of you have been asking for her to come, and I finally got her here, and she is here. I don't know whether to call her Sam or MisRed. I'll go with Sam today. Hi, Sam.
I think you can call me Sam because you've interacted with Sam more than MisRed.
Yeah.
In as much as there's been the brand building side of MisRed that you've also been a part of. But yeah, Sam is good. I miss that sometimes.
Sam. So today we are on Sam.
Yes.
Welcome, Sam. How are you?
I'm good. I'm happy.
You're happy.
I'm being faithful to my happiness.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people know you as MisRed, but I want people to know who is Sam. Sam.
Mm-hmm. Samantha, let's finish it off, is a daughter of a great mom and dad, Stanley and Albertina Musa. She's the firstborn in a family of 4, so with 2 girls and there's 2 boys. She's also a mother, which is something that she takes very seriously, to 2 beautiful daughters. But somehow along the line, I became the mother of my siblings as well. You know, like with black tags and, exactly, deputy parent. So I've been like a senior deputy parent for a really long time. So yeah, she's also a media personality outside of... being a mom, being a sister, being a deputy parent. So she's a media personality and multimedia personality in digital media. I love digital right now, but also terrestrial. So I'm on radio, I'm in television, in multiple countries, not just Zimbabwe.
Oh wow, that's so exciting for such a young person,
right?
Oh,
I forgot one more, and this one I think it's the most proud one. But I'm always like, but people, do they really want to hear this? But I am a published author as well.
Oh yes, I was actually going to talk about that during the interview. Yes, she's a published author, so we're actually going to get into that. In fact, let's start there. Let's talk about your book.
Yes.
What got you to write the book?
So I had always been, and it's going to sound funny because, so I used to have like a blog. I started off with a secret blog where I would just, write up people's stories and I'll just post it and, like those tabloid type of, things. Then I realized this is not really my thing, and then I just did an actual blog where I would do, it was an imisred.com at the time, and it was a lot of news. So I started off with one of my PAs back then, who was Kevin Mwenye. And he would be like, okay, let's type out the stories. Let's look for the stories. And then we'd do it. It was a nice, simple blog. I'd write the stories. He would write some stories. And then I stopped that, but I just started writing for myself. I'm very tactile. So I'll take a pen and I'll take a paper and I'll write whatever my feelings are. There's a verse in the Bible. Write down things so that you make it plain. Yes. So I've always been someone who likes to write. And then I just started writing my feelings. And then my feelings became a chapter, became a book. And then I got some help from my friend, Arnold, so profound. And he's like, okay, let's turn this into an actual book because you seem like you have the right thoughts. We churned it down, and then we had a whole weekend where we were going back and forth and saying, okay, what's the process of how you want it to be laid out? You've got the basics, because I had the outline of everything that I wanted to include in the book. And I haven't even started. I think that was just me dipping my toes to see what will people say if they saw a book written by me. But I enjoyed it so much.
Talk me through the process of writing that book. How was it? How did the emotions that you went through, and what were the learnings from writing that book? What did you learn?
So the title of this book is Be Faithful to Your Happiness. So I was depressed for a very long time. And writing down was almost my escape to say, this is how I'm feeling. So I'd write it down, put it aside, write it down. And then collectively it became something. But it wasn't like a planned thing, if I'm to be very honest with you. I went through so much. And I didn't know who to tell. Because when you're in media, you can't afford to go on radio, as an example, and be unhappy and say, guys, I'm going through it. My bills haven't been paid. I have no one to ask. And I've never been the person who actively looks around for people to help me, because I've always been the help to everyone else around me. So it was so tough. So I actually had a period in which I was just looking for some kind of isolation to just feel better about what was going on. And because MisRed was growing and, Ndanganchirira in quotes at the time, I had no one. I genuinely had no, I had so many people around me, but there was no one that I could be vulnerable enough to tell, hey, I'm going through it. So writing became my escape. It wasn't enough at the time because I think I was going through proper clinical depression, but it gave me a moment of just, okay, if I write it down, maybe I'll feel better and I'll wake up better, I'll have a few days better, then go back to my depression. But at least it was something that I could, So once that happened, I started seeking happiness because I was like, I need to be happy. And someone, I was talking to, I don't remember who, but they just mentioned you need to be faithful to yourself. Stop thinking about faithfulness in the context of I need to be faithful to my partner. Have you been faithful to yourself and to your needs and to your heart? And then I said, yeah, I need to actually start being faithful to my happiness. And that's where the title came. So the title came before I even thought of the book, and it became an expression that I held deeply for a very long time. And then when we decided, let's do this book, I was like, hey, be faithful to your happiness. I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about my story, where I came from, where I'm going. So even if you read the book, it doesn't fully give you where I'm at now, but it just gives you just a little bit of an insight as to where I came from, as well as where I am going.
That was the part that I actually wanted to get to, because when I read it, I felt like you kind of like let out, but you didn't really quite get in there. So as you're talking now, I'm listening and I'm saying, okay, there's someone out there maybe who's also going through depression. What would they do? Just advise them from the point of view of what you went through and what you did and how you, because I know sometimes it's really hard, depression, especially Black, for us to talk about depression. I know because I went through depression as well. To talk about you being depressed is quite difficult, and even to identify
that I am
you're
depressed.
It's really difficult. So just talk me through that.
So do you know, someone once said to me, this is funny. First of all, it's always disease yarungu. That's the first one. And then the other person is like, asa unamari. So it's like, actually, no, it's not a money thing. People assume that depression is immediately, linked to money issues or whatever. But I was genuinely, in my prime, I was getting gigs, but I was still unhappy. So depression can never be fully explained to someone who has never been through it. I mean, there's different levels to the depression. There's, you can suffer from anxiety, you can have palpitations, you can have, there's so many things, and then you can just have sadness that you don't understand. Someone else also described it to me as a demon, and it stays within you and it seeps in you, and it's not necessarily to say that something is wrong, but you just don't feel like yourself. So for me, I wasn't feeling like myself, and I felt like there were so many expectations of me. And yet, I just wanted to be simple Samantha. I've always wanted to be simple Samantha, even until today. I have fights with people because I'm like, but you guys don't know me. You have a perception that you have developed in your minds because I haven't answered all the questions you want me to answer. And so it's easy for you to just create a story when you don't know something about someone. So at the time, I was just going through a lot. People had their perception of me, and I had no way of understanding how to deal with it or even explaining to people. And someone said, don't explain yourself. So it was a multitude of things that were going on at the same time. So I can never, even until today, I can never really tell someone, do this or do that. But you have to have that honest conversation with yourself and say, I've got a problem. So identification, is the first part. And once you know what it is, you have to start working on your mind. The mind is the most powerful thing. And it can make, it can break. If you keep on telling yourself, I am depressed, you will continuously be depressed. If you tell yourself, I have challenges, you continuously have challenges. So I now learned, and this is why I love golf. Now I'm going to touch on that next. Golf, a friend of mine was seeing that I was going through this depression as well, and was like, okay, let me teach you how to play golf. It helped with my mind because you have to focus. So once I got in tune with my mind and I started feeding my mind with the things that I want as opposed to what is happening, I became clean. I started to cleanse my soul, my spirit, and life was never the same after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so profound. That's so profound. That's so profound. But you know what? as you're talking, I'm just listening and I'm thinking, okay, let's talk about being a firstborn. And then when you're depressed and you had a lot going on, and you were saying you had people around you, but you had no people around you to talk to. From a firstborn perspective, deputy parent, tell me how that made you feel, because I know I'm a firstborn. So, you take on so much sometimes. Sometimes I think it's just me, but now when I'm listening, I'm thinking, maybe it's not just me. Tell me that as a firstborn, how also were you trying to handle the depression, without necessarily maybe talking to your parents or letting your parents or your siblings know, because you're just trying to be okay?
Yeah, I hope I don't cry. I didn't even have the luxury to think of that. Some people think you have the luxury of talking to people and saying to them, you see what's happening. And, for my parents, they're older. So they really actually require the help. And then for my siblings, it's like, all they know is Samantha Zon is going to take care of us. So you're trying to communicate with people that, in the heads are like, but that's what you're supposed to do. You can't even have that conversation with anyone. You really can't. And at the time, I had that wasn't even an option. That wasn't even a thought. It was like, I just have to make it happen. There's two things in life, excuses and results. And literally the only thing that I have had at that time was I just had to give results. So, yeah, I never, even thinking back now, even when I remember telling one of my siblings, I was like, I'm going through depression. It's like, oh, okay. So I need money for...
That's it.
Yeah.
No chance to even,
Yeah.
Well, how does that make you feel, though? Like, at that time and now?
At that time, I think I used to cry myself a lot to sleep. A lot. But now it's like, I'm like, everybody's grown. I don't have to do this. Now I know how to say no. Back then I didn't know how to say no, because in my head I didn't have a choice. But now I'll look at you and say, oh, okay. And I'll just, leave people to be about themselves. But now I've learned the power of saying no. Okay. And this is not just my family. This is in general. Yeah.
So the learning for you from that is you've now learned to say no, and your boundaries now.
Boundaries are crazy. That's one of the biggest things that I had to learn. And it was during that time that I learned, when I was, going through my healing process. It's okay to say no. It's okay to have standards. It's okay to want to be great and not apologize for the life that you want to live. I continuously apologized, and I felt so like I needed to explain myself to people, because I just felt like that was my cross to carry. But no, I don't have to explain myself. As long as I know who I am, that's enough. I don't have to try and fit into anyone's composition of who they think I am. If they want to think that, go ahead. But I think also the energy that comes with that, people see, she doesn't even care about, so why are we putting energy into her, So I think that in itself became a powerful moment in my life as well, where I learned the power of no, the power of boundaries, the power of just saying, I want to be who I want to be and not be apologetic about it. I was too apologetic. Yeah.
That's really, yeah, that means that says a lot, I think, because a lot of people, I think, especially young African girls, are very apologetic, especially if they like something, if they want to do something, they're very apologetic about that. And I want to take you back a little bit, because we spoke about your book, we spoke about your depression, and I know that there was a time, and obviously coming from being a firstborn as well, where things happened the way they were not supposed to happen. When you had a child, as a young mother, talk me through that. What happened? How did you go through it? How did you talk to your parents? And then, and here we are today.
That whole story is actually in the book, so go buy the book. I never planned it, and I was a young mom. I'd literally just come out of school, and I was, if I say...
How old were you?
I was 20 when I announced I was pregnant. So I was very young, coming out of my teens, and, I'm literally still a baby, if I'm to be quite honest. And I was supposed to be going to school, and I couldn't now go to school because it's like, So a lot of things were happening. So it wasn't even, if I tell you, it was not a part of the plan at all. Yeah, but it was hard because one, it wasn't part of the plan. Two, it happened in a very weird way because it was almost like my parents, it's a whole whirlwind of things, but let's take it back to the beginning. So I wasn't even dating the man, if I'm to be very honest with you. We weren't dating, but we had dated previously. And I was now living in Mozambique. So I'd come back for holiday. Living with my aunt in Mozambique. I come back for holiday. And we were just talking, Next thing, I'm hanging out with him a lot more. I'm going over for sleepovers. We're messing around, young people. And he then decided, because I was supposed to go back. And I was like, I'm not going back, so I'll see you when I come back. And then he says, no, you're not going back. I want you to now stay. I'm going to go speak to your parents and we're going to get married. So I'm like, what do you mean? So I thought it was a joke when you were saying it. I genuinely thought it was a joke because my plan was to go back. And I was loving Mozambique because I was like, where I was just becoming a flower, and understanding myself and seeing that there's more to life than me being in this country. I can travel the world. I can, be anyone that I want to be. So one Saturday afternoon, after we had this conversation, he's like, nah, I'm not going. You're not going anywhere. He goes to my parents' house and he's like, because I was at his house when we were having this conversation. He goes to my parents' house, like, I'm going to go grab my tete or whatever. And then we're going to go talk to your parents. I'm going to tell them that we're getting married. So I was like, okay. I thought he was joking. Let him go. I didn't even, So my mom starts calling me. I'm like, he went. I didn't even need to answer the phone to know that this guy had gone, he went. So now I'm panicking. So I'm not answering my mother's phone call. I'm panicking. Then he had gone, and this is how I was told the story. He had gone and rang the intercom and told whoever. And it just so happened my uncles and my aunties were there that day. And he then rang my intercom and he says to whoever was there, mama. So I was like, so when the story was being told to me, I'm like, oh my God. So I was scared of my mom and my dad. And because I grew up being like a really, none scans are growing up, but then I had gotten straight. When I went to Mozambique, my aunt fixed me. I was a human now. And even this whole thing with this guy wasn't really a thing, but he was just there. So I was young, Now I'm scared. And I'm like, man, I'm supposed to be going back. This guy just went to my house. He's causing drama for me. And, I think his heart was in the right place because I guess, he was kind of in love. He was also young and, he was going through his whatever. I'll never, So then now everyone is calling me like, what is happening? And I'm not picking up anyone's phone call because I'm so embarrassed by the situation. So embarrassed. And by this time, I was okay. I was not pregnant. So the embarrassment went on. I didn't pick up my phone. So I was like, I'm staying. I have to just stay here because, until everything
cools down.
Stay here became 1 day, 2 days. My aunt then called me, the one in Mozambique, because she was trying to understand what's going on. Now I was really embarrassed because that's the person who's taking care of me. And
who straightened me.
And I'm like, And at that point I was like, and he's serious. He's like, yo, I need to go. Can they set a date? I've got the money to marry you. Okay.
How old was he? You were 20?
He was
you were 19
Yes, I was 19, turning 20. It was just almost my birthday. And he was like in his late 20s, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So he's going on with this process. He's busy looking for my relatives to go and, do the right thing. I'm not even wanting this. I was just embarrassed. And I think out of shame, I decided not to say anything but in the process of us staying together. So now, after like a month, 2 months, I just wasn't feeling it. And I just called my mom. I was like, Mom, this is not it. And my mom was like, okay, it's okay. It's okay. And she had seen me like a week prior and I just lost so much weight. I wasn't looking healthy. I think it was because of a lot of thinking and so forth. It wasn't even like healthy weight loss. It's like, no, manangu, we'll figure out what your dad says when you come. If he's gonna beat you, he'll beat you. Whatever happens. But just come home. But the first thing now, my mom, she collected me. And then she said to me, we need to do a pregnancy test just to make sure. We'll deal with the other things. Because obviously, at that point, I wasn't going back to Mozambique because it's like, my aunt was like, but are you not serious?
They are trying to straighten you and
Like,
you are.
Look at your life. So, listen, Mom. So, my mom, we did pregnancy. I didn't even think I could be pregnant, Yeah, ne? And then voila, God gave us a, interesting surprise. So with that interesting surprise, my dad then said, you want to come home?
Go back.
Go right back, man.
Typical African.
So typical African father, he wasn't even having none of it. He's like, go back. And now this guy, because the way I lived, he's like, excuse me, where are you coming back to? Sleep in that other room, and here I am, I'm pregnant. And so I went a couple of months down the line, I was staying there and a lot happened, and I did the same thing. Mom, it's not working out, and here I am, I'm pregnant, like pregnant. I think at that time I was like 6 months pregnant by the time I called my mom again, but it was just a complete embarrassing situation. But my mom says, okay, come, right? Went back to my mom's house. For a lot of people didn't even know I was pregnant. I gave birth. No one knew because I stayed in the house the entire time because I was embarrassed by the situation. I just come back. I was popping off. I was the girl who had come from Mozambique. Things were, looking out for me, and I was pregnant. So I remember my mom even sold, because the money was tight then. My mom even sold, I need to replace my mom's fridge. My mom, she sold a fridge to make sure that I had like...
Mom, Sam's going to replace your
I
fridge.
need to replace, I've done a lot. Yeah, but anyway. She sold a fridge just to get me like the starter pack. And my mom was like, I'm not buying you diapers, I'm buying you napkins. And I want you to learn kuwacha. And that was a very big life lesson from mom. But yeah, and then the guy, we just... because of the way I lived, because of things that happened. And I don't know, like now we're in a very good place. But then, I guess we're both young. And, we made our fair share of mistakes. But that's how my pregnancy happened. I didn't plan it, didn't even want it. But I think God gave me the biggest blessing of my life. And I love my daughter with everything inside of me because I became a human being because of her.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me what changed from the moment, when you're pregnant and you're pregnant and first of all, you're not happy and you're trying to go back home. Tell me about the emotions that you were going through at the time. And then tell me what you would tell Samantha then with what you know now.
I would tell her, well done. I blocked everything out. If there's ever a time I read books, I read so many books. In my isolation at that time, I read so many books. But I'll actually say well done because if I'd done it any other way, I would have probably died. And died from suicide, died from the things that were happening on their own was so much. I wouldn't be here. But I then decided I'm going to go through this. I'm going to finish this isolation and I'm going to be the person I want to be. And strangely enough, it's going to sound very weird. There was another guy. He dated me a long time ago and he saw me pregnant. He's like, I want to date you. I'm like, what do you mean you want to date me? It's like, I want to date you. I am 8 months pregnant. Can you not see it? I want to date you. I'll take care of the baby. I'll get you what you need. I want to date you. So even until today, that guy, he actually says, that's my daughter, even when he moves around. So people will be like, who's the actual father of the, but it's because of that. And I'll never, this is the first time I'm ever talking about this though. But yeah, he genuinely was like, I'm going to love you either way because you're a special person. So, yeah.
And what would you tell a 19-year-old who's out there right now? Stuck, pregnant, out of school. They don't know how to tell their parents. They don't know what to do. They want to commit suicide. I had someone who inboxed me and actually said, she's 19. She's pregnant. She doesn't know how to tell her parents because she's about to go to uni. She was supposed to be going to uni. And she wants to commit suicide. I mean, what would you tell other young girls out there? Because these things happen. I mean, as parents, I'm a parent to almost adults. In fact, one adult child and two teenagers were almost adults as well. So I think about it that if something like this happened, maybe I think differently.
Yeah.
So I would say, okay, I always tell my daughters, you need to come and talk to me, whatever. But I'm just saying these kids who can't talk to, what would you tell them? How would you tell them to go on? How would you advise them,
There's actually life after mistakes. It's whether it's a pregnancy, whether it's, you've dropped out of school or something happened and it forced you into a position that you're like, and you got into a marriage that you didn't want to get out of. There is always life even after any mistake, whatever it may be, specifically for pregnancy, because in society, I don't think it's the same way as it was back then. Now it's very different. You got moms like you who are actually quite woke. For me, I never expected my mom to be the one to say, no, Manang, it's okay. Let's figure it out. You'll be surprised. Some parents, they might even scold you then, but you will always forever be their child. So if they genuinely are your parents who love you, they will figure it out with you. It's a very different world we live in today. And I think the biggest thing is there's always life. Even if they decide they don't want to support you, it's fine. There's still life because you're still living. You're still able to, move around or whatever it is. You're not incapacitated simply because you got pregnant. It's a mistake that took two people. Unfortunately, the one who is subjected to the issues is the one who's carrying the baby. But even at that, there's still so much life out there, and you can have this baby and even become the most successful person out there. I always look at the Oprah story. People forget Oprah was pregnant when she was, a very young person. I mean, whatever happened with the child, but look at her today. She's a clear testament to the fact that even after the biggest mistake in your life, you can still get yourself up and get going. There are organizations as well which help teen mothers to regain their self-esteem. Those who happen to be in school, they put them back in school. There's one called Shelton organization. You can look it up, sheltonschool.org. I think that's the website, whereby they take in teen moms. They've got quite a lot of them that they support. They've got a live-in program where they actually keep them at their safe house. And then there's some who are having like outreach programs whereby they give them tools to help them go back into school, learn a skill, etc., etc. So they're actually organizations which are there to help for that specific thing. I know with the Shelton School, they're actually they're teaching girls how to design clothes, and they've got like an Ankara brand that they have. So people can actually go and support them by buying clothes for them. But there's also, taking care of the babies and so forth. But there are organizations, so many. But it's just the fact that we may not know that they are there. So those organizations will help rebuild you, your self-confidence, help you get back into your education. But it is not the last thing in your life. You can still become someone even better than you would have become if you had just,
had a baby.
Yeah.
I was listening, I can't remember where it was, where someone was saying, you must always, when you're going through something, you must always think that next year this time things will be different.
Yes.
And always think about that next year this time things are going to be different. And you now need to just work towards, and I like what you just said, that you then just have to take it on and work towards becoming a better person, and just that's really, really good. What were the 5 lessons that you learned from that time when you especially when you came back from Mozambique? The person you had become when you came back, getting pregnant, and then subsequently going home, then going back, then going back home, and then isolating yourself, but then coming out a better person. What were the 5 biggest lessons that you would say you learned from that period that you still carry on even today, or you would impart to other young people?
I think, like you said, there's always look at things thinking, okay, next year same time, where will I be? And weirdly enough, that's a trick that I even use until today, whereby even when I'm going through something, if I'm going for an event, I'm like, okay, tomorrow this time I'll be done. So I always look at things in that manner so that I go through them differently. But I think I learned patience with myself. That's the first and most important thing. I learned a lot of patience with myself. Hey, there's a lot of lessons. The world does not stop for your issues, but you have to now learn to say, how do I tackle this best and move forward? Nothing is going to stop. The problems are going to happen. Economies are going to change. But if you just stay there expecting someone, no one is going to come help you. Shout out to Altamara. No one is coming to save you.
No one's coming to save you.
So that's right. That's another one. I also learned that, you think you have plans. Sometimes your plans, there's that saying that you make plans and then God laughs.
Yes, yeah.
Literally, I think that's where I was at. And I don't think I'll be the person that I am today if I hadn't gone through all of that. It was part of the overall plan of God, because that's my story, and maybe it's there to glorify someone else's story or to be a testimony to someone else's, life and condition at that moment. And they need to hear my story to be able to say, okay, so she did it, so I can did it too. Right? So that's another one. I don't know if I can get to 5, but those are the ones that I know solidly. Yeah.
That are the key lessons that you learned.
Yeah.
And then you talked about just now you're talking about when you're about to go on stage, that you have that feeling that, okay, by tomorrow things will be done. I'm when people are looking at you, they're like, come on, MisRed. How? You don't look like you get scared when you go on stage. Tell us, talk to me. Because I always tell people when I'm going to speak at events, they're like, but you always look so... And I said, you know what, even a minute, when I get on that stage, I'll be like sweating and whatever. But it's only when I start talking, But
get into the rhythm.
You tell me what happens, the nerves before, and,
It's crazy because you don't know who's listening, if you're going to be funny, if people are going to like you. Because sometimes it's an energies thing that, the place in which you're speaking at is the energy, right? Are the people going to reciprocate the same energy that you're going to give? I get nervous all the time. There's never a gig that I do that I'm not nervous. The only place that I'm not nervous in is radio. I can walk in with my eyes closed and I will not even if I fumble, I will laugh and I'll keep it moving. But when there's crowds and I'm like, okay. But I learned to kind of block it out and just say it's me and one person. So when I do that, I actually have a moment. Before I do anything, I always tell people I need 5 minutes to myself. 5 minutes to myself, whether it's backstage or whether I do my own prayer, because I'm very heavy on spirituality. So I do my prayer, I meditate, and then when I'm ready, they know when to bring me my microphone. And then as I'm going in, I just say, God, take this over, and I move forward. Whatever the program is, I always ask God, let it be your program and not mine. So I'm very exceptionally spiritual, but the nerves never go away. So you need to have time with yourself to find your calm and center yourself and then go. Whatever happens afterwards, happens. But centering yourself is always the most important.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you believe that that's also what helped you, I'm just trying, I'm sorry I keep getting back to it because I'm just thinking of these girls who keep reaching out and asking, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do, I'm pregnant, I don't know what to do, I don't know, it's the end of the world,
It's not. It may be the beginning of your world. Do you get me? Maybe the child was there specifically, and I'm not saying by any means you should go out and find pregnancies. No, it's hard. It's very, very hard. Being a single mother, I'd never recommend it because it's probably the hardest thing. But sometimes those are the cards you are dealt. So it is not the end of the world. It may just be your beginning. So, I again, it's in the mind. If you tell yourself that it will really become the end of the world. But when you allow yourself to take in the mistake and say, okay, it's now here, you actually look at it and say, what do I do next, with a little bit more confidence and conviction, because you're no longer dwelling on the fact that it has happened, but you're now saying, okay, it's happened, so what next? That becomes your next point of reference. Yeah.
And after the baby came, what next? What happened next?
We could be here for hours. We could be here for hours. So I was trying to go back into school. I was now living in Pretoria, and my parents were now trying to establish me that the kid was growing, and my child, she was growing, and my mom was now like, okay, so we need to figure out what to do with you. And then I moved to Pretoria. I was trying to get back into school, and then Zimbabwe happened. And now my parents couldn't pay for me to be in Pretoria anymore. So I had to kind of now look for a way to subsidize, find a job. I found a job at a call center. And this call center, I didn't even make a lot of sales, so I was struggling, but at least I was getting my salary. One day, someone called in. Hi, how are you? This is next. How can I help you? Cool. They wanted to speak to my boss. I don't know how they'd gotten to the call center extension. So I was like, no, let me patch you through. So my boss then calls me and he says, Katlego, says, come to my office. I need to speak to you. Okay. So the person who had called, he then says, liked your voice. They said, you must come and do voiceovers. I was like, man, y'all are trying to hook me up with your people and pimp me out. I'm not doing this with you guys, So in my head, I was just like, ugh, it's just a silly way for guys to get, So he's like, no, I'm serious. Go to the studio and just, try it out. Okay. Next day, I had time in the morning. I went past the studio. Turns out it was a real thing. Did my first voiceover. He's like, it's not really perfect, but just train a little bit and you'll get it. So I started to train and then I did my first gig. So I was doing like adverts for your Peps, for your Nexitels, for your, in South Africa. So I got that. And then someone said to me, you should try radio. Okay. And then I just did a demo, right? And then I sent it.
In SA?
Yes. So I sent it to Zimbabwe because that was the time when the new radio stations were coming up.
Oh, okay.
So I sent one to Star FM. I sent one to ZFM. Everybody ignored me. Cool. Then I was visiting Zimbabwe. And then there's a friend of mine who had a studio. And then he's like, let's do this radio thing. And then I did another demo. Then I went personally now. I went, with my confidence. Because at that time, I was still very confident. Didn't matter what the world had to give me. Before there was MisRed, there was Samantha, who was a very confident woman. She had just been a single mother, but she was still confident in herself. So I'd walk with conviction. Went to Star FM, looking good. Can I see Kamvan Bufana? They're like, what do you do? It's work. Okay. I then went, this is my demo. It's like, okay. I genuinely didn't even have an appointment. I went. I think he even just ignored me. So eventually he's like, I don't think we're not looking for anything right now. And, he straight up rejected me. And I'll always tell him the story. He knows the story. Straight up rejected me. Went to ZFM. I really didn't know anyone there like that. I mean, I knew Tony Friday. I knew Tony G. I knew Ruby from school days, but not at that point where I could be like, yo, take my thing. So I just went past ZFM. I was like, my thing was I wanted to go to Star FM because that was full at the time. Mm-hmm. At the time. So cool. I went and just dropped off my demo. No one cared. Fast forward, I tried to talk to Tony G. Tony G is like, and then I met him at the Agric grounds. And I was like, Tony. He's like, okay. But he had straight up he was being diplomatic about it. But So, the miracle that happened, I then went back. And my parents were like, pack your stuff and come back home because we can't afford for you to be at school. So, we've tried, but there's so many things that we have to do. Your brothers, your sisters. I was doing marketing at the time. So my brothers and sisters had to go to school. So my parents were like, yeah,
we gave you a chance.
We tried. Let's take of the ones that we can. Mm-hmm. So I moved back. And, nothing was happening. I was just, bumming around, going into town. See what's happening in the city. I had friends in the city, so I'd spend time, go back home at the end of the day. So one day I was just frustrated. And my mom was paying school fees for my little one because she was in preschool. And I was like, God, what is this? So my mom had a prayer area at the back of the house. So I then went one day and it was a weird morning. When I started praying and shouting at God. I've never shouted at God the way I shouted at him that day. But why did you bring me back here if you're going to make me suffer like this? What am I even doing here? What is this, the purpose of life? What are we doing? I genuinely had a back and forth with God at that time. I don't know what gave me the guts to think I can fight with God, but anyway. So I was done with my prayer and exactly 7 minutes later, got a call from Tony Friday. Where are you? I'm at home. Can you come to ZFM tomorrow? Okay. cool. My fight with God must have worked, you know. So in my head, I was thinking he was calling me for voiceovers. And then turns out they were calling me, they had found my demo. I think Tony G had found it. And then he went to give it to Tony Friday thinking he listened to it thinking it was music. And then he heard the demo. He's like, but this girl, why don't you try it out? Tony G gave it to Tony Friday. Tony Friday was listening to it with TK. And then they're like, we could work with her. That's when the call came. Next day I went and I'm ready for voiceovers. You know, I'm not even trying to, you know. We want to train you and see if we can put you on the breakfast show. But God.
From nowhere to the breakfast show.
Yo.
Yeah? Remember Esther from outside to the palace.
But God, Nyenge, God can literally in a second, he can turn your life around. And that was my story. As a woman who'd gotten pregnant, didn't want to get pregnant, didn't want any relation that had marriage involved. I wasn't even thinking of that. I went through the pits, had to drop out of school because my parents couldn't afford it, came back home from another country. I was literally a failure in people's terms. But God changed everything. Everything. And from that moment on, it has not been the same. Yeah.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh. we definitely need a part 2 of this.
Right.
We really need to, because I'm just getting into it and I know that our time is up. But before we go, I just, from where you've been, I mean, I know we touched on a lot of things and we still have so many things that we have not even touched on.
See why I only did part of the book. I still have a lot more to write.
We need to have another to have another part 2 with Sam.
Yeah.
I just want you to give me some life lessons from young Sam to up to where you are today. I mean, like real life lessons that you can say, guys, come on, A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
First one is to be intentional. Be intentional about who you want to be, where you want to go. Again, that verse, it always rings in my life. Every time I'm going through something, write your vision down, make it plain. Be intentional. Intentionality. Number 2, what is the worst that could happen if you try? I learned that the world has so many opportunities for me and was a little bit too late. But if there's a young girl watching right now and she doesn't think anything will happen in her life, anything is possible if you just put your mind to it. Your mind, number 4, matters. Whatever you put into your mind matters. The things that you consume, the content on social media that you consume, it's very important that you keep it clean because what you see is what you become. So if you keep on seeing, this bombs, and you might become that person who only envisions and sees bombs, you know? Nothing wrong with bombs, but you know what I'm saying? What you feed yourself, it's very important to feed yourself with the things that you want to become. So if you are a spiritual person, feed yourself with spiritual things. If you are wanting to be a brand, feed yourself with things that help you become a brand. Very, very important what you feed yourself every time. Read more. Knowledge is absolutely power. People might think in the digital age, because everything is so quick and fast, you don't need knowledge. It's a lie. You still do very much need knowledge. Make time to find out, do your research, you know? Build yourself to a point whereby there's no one who's better than you at what you want to do. I enjoy my job so much that people think that I don't do research, but I technically, every day I'm sitting down, going through my notes, reading up stuff. And because I love it so much and it's inside of me, it almost feels natural. But this is because I'm putting time to be intentional, feeding myself with the things that I feel my brand needs for it to be able to grow. Right? And I'm thinking all the time, what is the worst that could happen if I try? Right? So these things are very important to me. Next one, and this is the biggest one. Absolutely no one will believe in you more than yourself. So you got to call yourself. You got to, look at yourself like you're $1 billion. You know what I'm saying? Every time you move, when you walk into a room, people must feel it because everything is energy. So for me, when I walk into a room, I walk with my head held high. Whether the people are trolling me on social media, I will dress up, I will look good, and I will go and target exactly what I want to target because I know who I am. And no one can tell me more than I can because I hype myself enough times to know that whatever they're saying, go right ahead, but I know who I am. So that intrinsically translates to my confidence. And when I walk into a room, I'm walking straight because I know my value.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Absolutely no. Now I know my value. Yo, shame. People always like saying, but you charge so much. I know my value. I know what I bring to the table.
That is fantastic. And that's a fantastic way to end. So as we're going out, remember to know who you are at the core. As you go out there, when you speak to people, when you just go and present yourself, just remember who you are at the core. And thank you, Sam, for those amazing lessons, and thank you for this time. We definitely need to come and have another sit down.
We can have a part 2, part 3. Shout out to Nyengeterai. I'd just like to do a shout out. I hope everyone's listening. She's one of the women who has been my supporters ever since day one, and you are the girl you think you are. Yes, man.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you so much. And thank you for the valuable lessons. I mean, I continue to learn from you guys. I'm way older. I must be old enough to be your mom.
Can I say this? I've been looking at the ladies over 50, right? I don't know what's going on, but y'all are... Whatever's in your water, we want it too. Yes. Have you seen Mary J. Blige? Have you seen J-Lo?
I know, right?
Yo. I played too much.
No, thank God. No, we thank God. And obviously we thank God and we continue to learn as well. Us, the older people, we also continue to learn from you young people. And that's how we stay vibrant, I say so. So before we go, we have our fun questions that we want to ask. Number 1, what's your favorite color and why?
It depends on the day. Listen. So it depends on my mood. Is it favorite color in terms of the mood? Favorite color in terms of how I dress? Favorite color in terms of the wig that I wear? You see, it can be different things. Color palettes in my house.
So depends
on the day.
On the day.
For my environment, I love nudes. And
to dress?
I love plain basic colors, silhouettes, because I always want a timeless look. So when it's just plain, usually it's more timeless. But red is not even my favorite color. A lot of people think, are you called MisRed? Because
why are you called MisRed? I know why. Oh, okay.
So it's actually misunderstood.
Yeah.
But
MisRed.
It's got a story that comes from the color red. So initially, I used to hang out, those friends that I used to hang out with when I was doing nothing and I was just, trying to figure out my life. When I came back from South Africa, I had a very unique shade of red, which was Ruby Woo at the time. And Ruby Woo was
Ruby Woo was amazing.
Like a thing, Yeah. And I was coming in, I was one of the first girls, because South Africa, it was a thing, and then Zimbabwe time, we weren't there yet, but I was coming in, I was there. So I always used to wear this red, very unique red lipstick. So one day I just stopped using it, and then someone's like, what's happening? So someone at the back called out, because she's MisRed. She's MisRed. And then when I started radio, I was like, let me just use MisRed, and then I changed it to misunderstood. But technically, it comes from the color red, from the lipstick red.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Which is not your favorite color.
Which is not my favorite color, but it looks good on me.
It does.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite pet and why? Your favorite animal?
I love dogs.
You're another dog person.
I know.
Okay. Why?
We've got a Maltese that we've had for years, Sly. And we take care of him like a human being. He's like a part of the family. I don't know if he's not feeling well. Like everyone is just like, Sly is not feeling well, guys. We need to take him to the vet, and then we need to, But I don't know what happens with dogs. My grandmother used to have cats. Found very strange, but I thought I would be a cat person, but actually I love dogs.
Love dogs.
Yeah.
What are you reading right now?
Right now, I'm not reading. That's the truth. It's been a while. I've been traveling. But there is a book. I'm forgetting the author, but it's basically talking about how lessons from one person who he got from multiple people. I'll look for the title and then I'll share it with you. But it's been a while, eh? Yeah.
Okay. And if we were to pack our bags right now and go to the airport, where are we going? Where are we flying to?
With visas or without visas?
You have, let's pretend you don't have, you've got a visa-free passport where you can go anywhere.
We are going to Italy and we're going to Lake Como.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm a nice things girl.
Yeah, I know.
I'm a nice things girl.
As well.
Oof. Just like you, I love to travel, love to see things, experience things. And the other one is Vietnam, weirdly enough. I'd love to experience Vietnam. I love South Korea as well. I'm very engrossed in South Korean culture because I like their television, I like their music. So we can start off in
Italy.
In Italy, we go to the Lake Como, and then we'll go over to Vietnam, which is very close to South Korea. So you just
I can see you love traveling.
That's my thing. I love more than anything else. It's expensive, but I love it.
You learn a lot. I believe that when you travel, it opens up your mind. It opens up the world to you.
And you don't dwell on the issues of Zimbabwean social media.
Or home or, problems. It's nice when you're away.
Yeah, it really is.
Thank you, MisRed. Thank you so much, Sam, MisRed, for your
Whichever
time.
one you prefer.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. You've been watching Moments with Nyengeterai. Please remember to subscribe and to turn on your notifications and to just follow me on all my social media platforms. Thank you.